For those just joining, welcome. And if you don't mind, please put where you're calling in from into the chat. Thank you. And then Kirti, I think we gotta get going. What do you think? Okay. So welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever time of day it is for you. We're excited to see you. You've all chosen to be here, so hopefully you know we're talking, this is the open house for Terra.do's course, Climate Change Learning for Action. I do ask if you're able to and feel comfortable, please turn on your camera. We love to see each other. That's something we like to do at Terra.do, to see who's here. It makes it feel a little friendlier and like we're talking to real people. One of the things about being online is it can feel a little distant and strange. So thanks, folks. So what we're going to do today, first, my name is Greg Finley. I'm one of two course directors for the Climate Change Learning for Action course at Terra.do. This is our flagship course. The other director is Hannah Welsh. She's in another meeting at the moment, but you will see her around on the course and on other Zoom events at various times. What we're going to do today is I'm going to open up, tell you a little bit about the course, a little bit about Terra.do. I'll tell you a little of my journey, how I got here as well, because it might apply to some of you or be similar to some of you. And then we'll hear from Kirti Mannion, our community manager. She'll talk about our mentorship program and maybe a little bit about jobs. Hi, Kirti. And then we have four recent graduates of this course, and we'll hear from each of them a little bit about their climate journeys. That's Robert Gray, Ben Candea, Amy Marcus, and Rafael Desaralde. Hi, all. Thanks for being here. And then at the end of this, we assume you probably have some questions. That's why you're here. So if we don't answer your questions as we go through everything, please feel free to ask your questions in chat or use the raise hand function to ask your question. And we'll spend about the last half of this hour answering your questions. And on that note, let's get going. So first, I want to tell you a little bit about Terra.do. Terra.do is an online for-profit company that started in 2020, and it has an ambitious goal of getting 100 million people working on climate change this decade. We have an ambitious goal because we're trying to solve an ambitious or huge problem, and it takes ambitious goals to solve that. So to achieve this goal at Terra.do, we offer a combination of climate education, connections to employers and climate jobs, and a supportive community of people who want to make a difference on climate change. We also recently launched an app this past year, and you can find that. Some of you probably found this through the app, but if you don't have that, you can find it on the Apple App Store or on Google Play, and you can download that. The app launched earlier this year as the company started to expand from learning only to a new focus on community, networking, and jobs. So this Learning for Action course is an intensive exploration of climate science, climate impacts, and climate solutions. And it's a combination of written classes, live weekly lab sessions, live deep dives, and live expert guest talks and workshops. All of the live events are recorded, so if you can't attend, you can always watch the recording later. That's a really brief intro. I'll come back to the course a little bit, but first I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I don't want to talk too much about myself, but again, my name is Greg Finley. I'm a course director. I came to Terra.do as a fellow. I wanted to learn. Previously, I was an adventure travel guide and outdoor educator. I have an MBA. I was an entrepreneur. I started several businesses, and I was CEO of an adventure travel company working on sustainable tourism, mostly in Latin America. And as I kept traveling around in South America, in the Amazon, the Galapagos Islands, and various places, everywhere I went, I kept realizing that climate change was actually not a future problem, but that it's here today. I have two kids, and between my concern for these places that I was working and where I was working and the people who live there and the future for my children, I became more and more concerned about climate change. I started volunteering. I've spent over a decade serving on the boards and as a volunteer working on energy issues in local regions. And eventually I came to realize that I needed to align my work with my values and my goals. And I decided to sell my business, transition out of working in tourism to working on climate change full time. And it's around that time that I stumbled into this course. And I was a bit of a skeptic. I wasn't sure if I should take the course or not. I thought I knew a lot about climate change already. And I wondered if this course would really help me. But I signed up for the course and I liked it immediately. And I found that it really rounded out my knowledge on climate change. It took me to look into areas that I had never considered previously. And I finished the course feeling like I had learned a great deal. And I was now super comfortable talking about kind of any topic on climate change. And if I didn't know the answers, I at least knew that I could go back and look at the course materials and get those answers. But I came for the learning, and ultimately I've stayed at Terra.do for the community. It's meeting like-minded folks like all of you that has really kept me here. And it's a really supportive, wonderful community that is really, I think, the strength of this program. When I came, I felt pretty isolated and even depressed on climate. And now I'm energized and invigorated and really happy to be working on this problem. So I was a fellow, then I became an instructor, and now I'm a course director for the program. So I have a unique perspective there. I'm going to go back into the course a little bit more. The course, generally, we attract people from all over the world. We had 2 cohorts running until just a little bit ago. We have recent graduates from our whale sharks cohort. And at that time, we had fellows from 25 different countries. We had over 200 fellows all here from various backgrounds. We have people who are students just getting started. We have retired people who are trying to figure out how to make a difference on climate change. We've had entrepreneurs, CEOs, software engineers, writers, filmmakers, all sorts of people who come take this program. And it has proven to really be helpful for pretty much all. We have extremely high favorability ratings. Most people would recommend this program to their friends, and people tend to love it. So the course itself is asynchronous course materials that you have access to. We release 1 or 2 courses every week throughout the 12-week program. It's a 12-week program. For this upcoming cohort, we will actually have our welcome sessions the week before the course starts. So we'll have a welcome sessions on Thursday, and then we'll do a little intro to how the course works on Friday, and then the course actually starts the following week. We'll release 1 or 2 classes a week. Those are asynchronous, meaning you view those on your own time. The courses are both written materials and videos. And then we will have in-person weekly labs. Those all meet on Tuesdays. If you're in India, one of those could be Wednesday morning for you. We also do deep dives, where we meet in person, and these are instructor-led, going deeper into topics that are covered in the course. We also have a number of guest speakers and workshops. These are also live events. We don't have one every week, but we do most weeks. All are recorded. During the course, there are 5 assignments. 2 are team assignments, 3 are individuals. They're all intended to help you on your climate journey. One big thing about the course is you have lifetime access to the course materials and the videos. So I have found myself, when I'd get into a conversation or talk to someone about a job, if I didn't recall quite what I was looking for, I knew exactly where to go back and which class to look at it, and I could look it up. And some of the biggest things, the biggest outcomes of this course for people are confidence and connections. We have so many people who say they now have confidence to go work on climate, that they can talk about these topics knowledgeably. And then the connections. All of you and the fellows in our program are pretty impressive folks. And the connections that you make can be friends for life, and also connections to help you with jobs. One final thing, we do have Slack channels, and we do a lot of communications via Slack. So that was a little bit about the program and about myself, and I'm going to pass it over to Kirti. And Kirti, feel free to fill in any gaps, things that I forgot, and tell us a bit about the community aspect and the mentorship program. Thanks, Kirti.
Thanks, Greg. Hi, guys. I'm Kirti. I'm based out of Singapore. I've been community manager since 2020 when I joined Terra. It's been very interesting, challenging, exciting time because I've seen so many cohorts graduate. Community really has been the secret sauce of what Terra's been about, very frankly. I think folks come from diverse parts of the world. They bring, diverse experiences. And I think when you kind of join a cohort, you get so much out of it, apart from all the learning that you obviously get as well. I'm here to talk a little bit more about just mentorship, which is one of the complementary offerings of the course, and a little bit more about the jobs and job fairs that are up on the app as well, which you obviously have access to any which way. And then I'll let the fellows kind of get going on that. So mentorship typically opens roughly around the 6th week, which is the midpoint of the course. And the idea there is that you get access to roughly about 160 climate experts who've been part of the Terra ecosystem for a while. All of these folks are, experts in their field, have been working in the climate space, everything from in academia to running their own startups in ESG and so on and so forth. The idea there is that they're able to kind of give you advice on what your career's trajectory is going to look like, especially if you're keen to make a transition job-wise or even startup in this space, right? And the notion there is that they're able to give you advice, offer you maybe some insights, access to their own network is also a very good possibility. So that's something that we always keen that fellows use. And I think the benefits of it, are quite tremendous in my mind as well. With jobs and job fairs, we do job fairs roughly about 3 in the month. There's one European or EU-based job fair that happens, I believe in the last week of the month. So feel free to kind of check that out on the app. Everything's up there. If you register, you get details about how to join, etc. They're very, very useful for understanding who's hiring, who the players in the space are, how you can access it's about access to hiring managers, which is not simply found when you do apply via on a website, for example. So I think feel free to kind of use that any which way and check that out as well. We also have a job board up, so plenty of jobs up there as well, so feel free to kind of check that out as well. These are kind of the 2 bits I would say that kind of help folks figure out what their career trajectory might look like if they're kind of making a transition into climate space. So I'm going to stop there. I rushed through that a whole lot, but I want to give the fellows who are really like the main stars of the evening here to kind of talk about their experiences with Terra and how it's been for them with the Learning for Action course. So maybe I'll start with Robert. Maybe if you want to get started, and if you can popcorn into the next person, that'd be great. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much. So hi, good morning, everyone. I'm in the Bay Area, Sunnyvale, California. And yeah, before Terra, really, I was already kind of working in climate in some ways. So I'd built out like a wildfire detection solution we're providing to a lot of the major utilities, and basically just trying to mitigate like large scale wildfires through early detection and situational awareness tools. And just in that role, I was meeting a lot of climate scientists, and I wasn't really able to like speak the same language. I'm not coming from like maybe a scientific or like a domain expertise background. And so that was one of like the kind of impetus of me wanting to go to Terra.do and get more of like a broader understanding of climate. But there was also something in me saying, I'm not sure what kind of impact I'm having in this role. And I'm wondering if I can like expand that within this role, or maybe I should move on to something else. Kind of similar with Greg, like I've lived kind of all over the world. So I've seen like kind of like in Denmark, where, it's like the cleanest place I've ever been to like Thailand in the summer when like or like maybe in winter when the crops are burning and the smog is like really, really bad, or Shenzhen, China, where you just have smog kind of regularly. So that's also been kind of a big part of it. I've always just cared about, nature and wanting to have a better world for my kids as well. But really, the course helped me get a basic understanding, and I was able to look at things a lot more holistically as well, which was something that I knew, but I didn't really understand like the full ramifications of all these like intricacies of just how the climate works. And it was also a really great tool for me to use as like a mind map to see, where could the most impact be? Where should I be looking to maybe work in the future? And then also like, what are those other problems that need to be solved that maybe I'm not aware of? Because I knew it was a big problem. I understand that almost everything we do as a society kind of impacts climate, but it's really a nice way to put those into little boxes and let me kind of clear it up and focus on different areas. And so in the end, yeah, I transitioned. So I recently started work in an ecosystem provider. We'd say like it's a VC, like a venture capital firm and accelerator. But Terra was really helpful when I was looking to transition, as I could sort of start to speak the same language as people. And another thing was I was able to become more aware of maybe where there's greenwashing, even in climate companies. And people who are more committed to like maybe just a bottom line and not really like the mission and vision, because that was something very important to me. So even just asking those kind of questions, for example, there was a company with the word climate in their name, but the correlation to how they're actually having impact on like climate wasn't all that clear. So I was able to like ask that and clarify that and really get like a sense from the founding team that they do care about this or they do not. And actually that's really funny. I'm sorry, I have some notes. So in one interview, it was with like a sustainability director who wasn't going to be like in my direct line, but someone kind of related. We were just kind of commiserating about like the climate disaster and just speaking for like 10 minutes about like, you know, how sad and depressing it is. Which wasn't great, but in the end, then he was able to transition and say, well, we've actually done like 120 pilots with the Alliance to End Plastic Waste with like various like startups and innovative technologies, working with corporates to try to do something to remove plastic from the environment. So it wasn't all bad, and I was also able to give me a more direct understanding of, okay, how is this company or how are these people doing something that's going to, you know, be impactful. So I think that was also very beneficial. And I also found that there was a few companies who are starting to get familiar with Terra. So that was also quite helpful to have it kind of on your resume and like speak to it in the interview. It also really helps if you are coming from something very different from climate or very different from the company you're applying to. It's a nice like transitional story of, you know, why I'm looking into this. So that was also really helpful. And I just want to make one quick note on impact. This was something that I was going through quite a bit was like another fellow I spoke with helped me when I was applying to these new roles. I was unsure about what is the actual impact like of this company of this position. And there was one in particular, which was like a very kind of well-known climate company. I think most of you would know it. But I wasn't really sure like what is the overall impact of this company and my role here. And this other fellow, he said, as long as it's like a net positive, then that should be enough. Because that's also a big part of this you might be going through is it's a big problem and it kind of feels overwhelming at times. But I think if you're doing something that's positive and beneficial, it's kind of, if we're all in this together, then we're going to do something good. And it kind of very much aligns with Terra's mission as well. And yeah, so just a last touch on what I'm doing. So I'm working at a VC, an accelerator. I'm specifically working under the sustainability kind of brand, but specifically in the food vertical. So again, I'm still like, you know, hoping that this has a lot of impact, and the goal is to really work with startups and innovative technologies to help companies further the sustainability goals, particularly in food, which is like kind of at the nexus of society and the environment. Because it's like the analogy I was using is like that farm to table. It's like it really touches like everything from the soil that we use, the fertilizer that goes in the ground, all the transportation and logistics that ends up taking it somewhere to a consumer so that they can go buy it and bring it to their plate. That has so many impacts on the environment. So I'm hoping that, you know, somewhere in this role, I can find other ways to help. That's all for me.
Amy, do you want to go next? Thanks, Robert.
Sure. Thanks, Kitty. That was so great, Robert, to hear your story. Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Marcus. I use she, her pronouns. I'm based in Walnut Creek, California, or on Indigenous Bay Miwok land. And I came to Terra after a couple of years of trying to kind of redirect. So my background is very much in international education and higher education. So working with international students for intensive language programs, service learning programs in India and Southeast Asia as well. And at a certain point, really in 2020, I just found myself very burnt out. I think you may have heard that from a lot of folks in education. Even though I was not a teacher, it was really hard to keep things going, doing lots of people's jobs. And I spent about a year, so that was about 2020 into 2021, revisiting my priorities. And part of that was applying to jobs and seeing what took. And part of it was in really coming back to climate, because I had spent so much time saying, oh, I'm not a scientist, what can I do? I'm not a scientist, who would take me seriously? Which is just so silly looking back, but I've since met a bunch of people who had similar feelings back in the 20-teens. So I spent about a year applying to jobs and then really just learning about climate on my own. So I was reading a lot of books and I was listening to a bunch of podcasts whenever I took walks. And that gave me a little bit the lay of the land. And then about a year ago, I landed a job at a company called HubSpot, which is a CRM and software company based on out of Massachusetts. And and spent this last year really like, learning my job and getting used to the company while on the side dipping my toes into climate action. So I joined an organization called CANI, the Climate Action Network for International Educators, where I'm not in international ed anymore, but that was a space where I saw, okay, I do know about international ed and I can start to take more action on climate, and sort of tested the waters with a few different activities like that, got involved with the sustainability group here at HubSpot. And then finally this summer, I guess it was, I decided to join Terra, and I was like, okay, I've done a bunch of reading, I've dipped my toes, I've like gotten involved in a couple different groups, but I wanted to make sure I had the like baseline knowledge and then also that community, and I wanted to meet the right people, and by right people I mean people who also want to do similar work. So it was amazing. I have to say this program was amazing, and I've never seen a community managed this thoughtfully. It's just every meeting is like this, is a Zoom meeting rather than a webinar. So it means that you can ask questions of the guest speaker, no matter how high profile they are. It means that you get to see all your colleagues. There's the chat going. I mean, it's just so well done. And it's been amazing to meet folks like myself who are looking for various ways to take more action in all different ways, coming from all those different backgrounds that Greg mentioned, which is so cool. Moving forward, I think the Learning for Action course gave me a lot of confidence and connections, like Greg said, honestly, because it means that now I feel more confident in engaging with the sustainability group within HubSpot. I feel like I actually know a little bit more of what I'm talking about. I feel more confident in my work outside of HubSpot in engaging with different groups. And then I've got the connections of sort of my like climate crew, my climate squad, I think is what we call it at Terra, of folks that I can reconnect with and see how they're doing. And did you get to do that coffee chat you were looking forward to? And I just feel like I have that baseline community, which is so cool. So I loved it. And I'm always happy to talk about it. So I'll pass it on. I'm looking at Raphael.
Hey, so I'm Raphael. Like Robert, I'm actually in Sunnyvale in the Bay Area as well. And let's see, I guess before Terra, I was kind of doing my first software engineering job, and it wasn't related to climate at all. I was actually like just kind of keeping a service running. And in 2020, also got kind of burnt out, felt isolated, and kind of rethought like what mattered to me. And one of the things I really wanted to do was make sure that what I was working on, like 8 hours a day, would be a mission that like I really identified with. And so climate change had been something I'd cared about for a long time, but ended up drifting away in terms of work as I figured out like what I could do. And so I started doing some of my own research. But one of the problems I had was it was really hard to know like what I was missing, like what gaps I had in my knowledge. And I was also doing it like all on my own, like without really any community support there. And so I found Learning for Action through a community at my work, actually. And it seemed like a really good fit. One of the things I was a little worried about going in was that it would be like too much for me to handle on top of my work, and that I would be like so exhausted doing both. But one of the things I was really pleasantly surprised by there was that just like the whole community around it was really energizing in a way that I didn't expect. And so although it was definitely a lot of time on top of my regular work, I really enjoyed it, and it worked a lot better than I thought. It was really good for finding those gaps in my knowledge. One of the things I had like heard about before, but didn't really understand or internalize at all was like climate justice. And the course material gave me a much better understanding of that. But it also went over a lot of other really interesting topics. By the end, there's an assignment. I don't know if it's in the current iteration of the course, but you like kind of write out all the things that you think you can do, your own personal climate action plan. And that was really cool for synthesizing all of the knowledge that we had gained during the course and figuring out how I can apply it. So I came up with way more things than that than I've had time to act on since. But I think one of the really cool things that came out of the course for me was I was just like talking about all the stuff that we were learning in the course with my coworkers, and I didn't realize that at the time, but I inspired one of them to go take the course, and he actually entered another climate role as well. So I also switched to a climate role. I'm working on like grid planning tools for energy utilities to try to help them transition to renewable energies. Ended up not happening through the course. I think I got really lucky early on in my search, but it was still super valuable to have all of the Learning for Action community around it. And it's always cool to chime in again. So yeah, I guess Ben.
Imagining I sense some trends with all of us talking about this stuff. Ben Kanda, I am based in Connecticut, so I'm on the East Coast, about an hour outside New York City. My life before Terra was probably quite different. I'd been working in media for about 12 years. I started my career as a journalist. I eventually made a transition over to the business side. I'd gotten an MBA that I did part-time while I was working and also online. So I was actually very comfortable when I ultimately signed up for the LFA course with sort of how everything was structured between the asynchronous and the synchronous way of doing things. Climate hadn't been necessarily on my radar as a career path. It was always something I was interested in reading about. And it's something that my interest, I think, continued as someone in their early 30s who was thinking about kids and what that would look like and what I wanted to leave in terms of the world behind if I were to have children. It was important to me that I'd be contributing in a positive way to try to avert a climate crisis. And during COVID, I think this kind of similar to it sounds like everyone else has talked so far, thought a lot about what I was doing and how I was contributing to the world and how I wanted to better align kind of my values with what I worked on. As I wanted to explore, shifting my career specifically to climate tech, I obviously didn't know where to start. It's not a place that I had a network. I didn't know anyone who worked in these spaces. I had very limited connections here. I'd come across Terra at some point. I don't remember where and when, but I kind of decided to take the plunge in January, sign up for the LFA course. So I did it earlier at the beginning of the year, kind of when I was first kicking off my kind of job search, career transition research period. It helped a lot. I mean, tremendously for me. I mean, it filled in, I think what everyone's kind of spoken to already, sort of those knowledge gaps that I had with different topics within climate that I didn't quite know of or understand. And it got me more comfortable with speaking to these things. And especially as I was kind of eventually going to start applying to jobs, showed that I was pretty serious about this career transition I was making. I was willing to invest my own money and my own time in expanding my knowledge on a topic that I hadn't been in before and was trying to kind of gain some base level understanding before I tried to actually find a new role. The networking was obviously tremendously helpful. I met tons of people who had either made similar transitions like myself or on the path to those transitions. I mean, when you're, I think, making such a big career transition, the peer support is super helpful. That's something that you ultimately want out at the end of this. And I met lots of people who, to this point now, because I've actually made that transition successfully, I can kind of help advise, connect with, network with other folks, things like that. So I think a lot of the networking you get out of this is extremely helpful. I know Kirti mentioned the mentoring aspect. That's obviously something that I took up on. I think I met with all 4 of the mentors that I was allowed to meet with. I may have also met with a 5th mentor on the side through a different community that I connected with. 2 of the 3 I'm still in touch with today to some extent, trade emails, things like that. At the time it was really helpful kind of as I was researching what industries, what problems am I most interested in trying to work on? Because I think climate is obviously a huge, huge problem that encompasses just every little thing. And you can get pretty quickly bogged down and trying to, if you don't sort of focus a little bit on kind of what you might want to do within that space. Since I finished the course, I joined Arcadia in September. So a couple of months ago. I've been there for a little less than 60 days at this point. If you're familiar with them at all, they're a tech company in the renewable space. They've been around for a little less than 10 years. They're headquartered in DC. I think I saw some folks from DC who were attending the call here today. They primarily work in community solar and utility data. So I work on the community solar side. I help balance our supply demand for community solar. So essentially helping make sure that we don't have too much projects that we're working on and then not enough customers to be subscribed to those projects. Terra is actually helpful in kind of getting me that role. I had met someone at the company previously and knew someone else who was doing some work over there, but I also connected with some folks at Arcadia at a job fair right around the time I was applying. So I kind of got quickly shot through the interview process and then joined a couple of months ago. So, I mean, couldn't recommend better, like taking this course, regardless of what you ultimately want to do at the end of it. I think it's, it's tremendously helpful, at least for me, and really helped get me on the way to kind of succeed in my goals here. Kirti, Greg, back to you guys.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, everybody. It's so nice to hear your journeys. I know we all know about it, but just having you talk about it is always so inspirational, really. Thank you so much. Greg?
Oh, I was going to say the same. Thanks for sharing those stories. It's really, really awesome to hear. If you have questions, please feel free to type them into the chat or use the raise hand function. Is there something that we didn't cover that you want to know about? Yeah. Nithish, is that right?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I was just a little curious about, did you know, did you were you most passionate about a particular set of climate areas that you wanted to work on, and did you primarily focus on those areas during the program, or like in terms of landing the job, how did that process go about? You just came across a new area during the program and you thought, okay, this is more interesting and probably needs more attention, and like did you kind of jump into that, or you followed whatever goals you had for yourself before you started the program, right? So did you, like, I'm just trying to understand how that journey worked for you. Thank you.
I'm going to answer really quickly, and then I'd love to hear from the alumni. And I just want to say, as an instructor and someone who's been working on this side for a while, I've seen all sorts of fellows come, and the journey's different for everyone. A number of people end up working, they know what they're interested in and they want to learn about all the other areas, but they really want to dive deeply into that area. But a lot of people come because they're not sure which areas make the most impact, and they want to explore that and learn. And so they go through the program and they get to the end and like, after exploring all of these, this seems really good to me, and this is where I want to focus my time and attention. So that's the first comment. Anyone else, any of the alums, you want to throw in something on that? Yeah, go, Robert.
Yeah, so that was something I was struggling with exactly, because I was working in kind of the forestry area, and like the En-ROADS tool, if you guys haven't used that yet, it's pretty amazing. Basically, if you don't know what it is, you have all these different sliders in different areas, which will show you kind of what would happen on our goal to getting under like a 2 °C increase. And so if you just put afforestation, meaning you plant like hundreds of millions of trees, almost nothing happens. And that was really depressing. So it kind of goes back to my comment about, like, if you're having a net positive, then that, like, maybe that should be enough, right? But to more specifically answer your question, yeah, I kind of assumed like energy would probably have like the greatest impact area, and I think that's like relatively true. But for some reason, it just wasn't like that exciting to me. It didn't spark a lot of interest, or I didn't have a lot of background in it. So me personally, I did try to focus on areas that I was like more passionate about, or just had some kind of interest and background in, before looking at those other sides. But that's how I did it. I don't think there's like a right or wrong way.
Any other of the alums want to respond?
Yeah, I can quick. Oh, Amy, go
ahead.
first.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think I had a general sense of the types of skills I know I want to use in my climate work. And for me, that came from doing the climate action Venn diagram a number of months ago, and identifying that, I really do enjoy facilitation, coaching, training, those kinds of skills. So I sort of stayed tuned into that throughout the course. But that's not necessarily going to help me identify a specific role, right? Because I could do that in all sorts of different companies. I could do that in all sorts of different ways. So I just sort of kept that in the back of my mind as I went through the course, and paid attention to which topics just sort of got me excited. So I have learned a lot about electrification and have seen how important that is. So I've learned a lot more about that, while some other topics just really don't interest me. And so I think I just kind of have kept that in the back of my mind as I go. I'll also say the assignments allow you to kind of focus in on topics you're more interested in. And so my teammates and I kind of chose topics that pushed us to learn more about a topic we didn't know about, for example, because ultimately this isn't like you're not getting a certain grade, you're not like you pass or you don't, essentially, right? So it's not like you have, this space was not about academic achievement, which is really my background, right? So for me, it was really refreshing to just be in a space where we talk about what we're excited about and what we're interested in and doing our best. You know what I mean? So I liked having that space to explore a lot and experiment. Yeah.
Ben, you had something to say?
It was pretty similar to what Amy also was saying. So I don't think it's probably other questions, probably more important.
Thanks, Ben. Tim, please.
Yeah, hi. It's interesting stories from everybody. Thank you. And thanks for putting this together. I'm curious, I guess, the level of detail on different topics, you know, coming from banking technology background. Would you learn something well enough to be able to say, yeah, I know that? Or is it really more about just now you've got a lot of familiarity and you can have good conversations, and one of you indicated, you know, you've shown some dedication to climate by, you know, spending your own money on this. How is it going to help, I guess, in getting a job, which is ultimately what I'm trying to do?
I think it would definitely help. I mean, I think ultimately, so the asynchronous material, it's a PowerPoint slide, more or less. And there might be some like work, especially in the beginning, I think, in kind of thinking about, well, how do you calculate kilowatt hours, stuff like this. That's super helpful for my current job now. Every slide has tons of links on it. If you go down those, they will take you down a potentially very deep rabbit hole that you may never escape from. And so you go so deep on that topic that you'll know much more than you think you need. I mean, Tim, this is obviously only from my experience and where I am in kind of my employment, which is sort of that mid-career level. A lot of the companies that are out there, if you're looking for a job, they don't expect you to necessarily have all of that knowledge. They assume they can teach it to you, because a lot of these solutions haven't existed until the last couple of years. At least that's what I found. I mean, I came in with a skill set that was useful for the company that I now work at, but I had very little knowledge. I mean, my boss has been working in solar development, product development for like 15 years. Like, I have nothing close to what he knows, but he knows that I can be helpful in kind of ways that having skills that he doesn't necessarily have, and that he can kind of teach me a lot of this stuff as we kind of move along.
Thanks.
I just want to quickly add, like, I think no one expects you to be a climate expert. Like, that's very frankly, right? When you go to a job fair, there's no notion that you must be a climate expert. The idea is that you understand what's happening in the space. It also goes back to reflects on your skill sets, right? And exactly what Ben said, where you add, what do you bring to the table? So they're interested in that as well. And I think the climate knowledge or the learning that you gain to the course kind of layers on top of that. And obviously, if you're, networking, etc., all of that helps as well. But the learning and the skills that you bring kind of is what you're bringing to the table when you're going in for a job as well. And one easy way to do that, Tim, is actually just attending a job fair. So we haven't done that, and we've got 3 coming up in December. I think the first 3 weeks. If you really just like attend those things, it gives you a good idea about like what's happening in these job fairs and what the ask might be as well. So it gives you a good reference point to kind of play along with as well.
And I'll just add that everyone's transition journey is a little bit different. We have some people we call single switchers who are keeping their same job function and same industry, but switching to working on climate for a climate company. And then we have some folks who are double switchers, which means they're at a point where they want to do a totally different career in a totally different industry. And of course, that can be a little bit trickier. But I will throw out that 99% of people who are going to be working on climate in the next decade are not doing it yet. So a great number of people are going to be transitioning to climate work, and they don't have experience or skill. And this does give you a little bit of a leg up If you want to work in policy, for example, and they're looking for someone who's been doing policy at the state level on a particular specialty, this course won't get you that job if you haven't, because they're looking for someone who's done it for 10 years. But if you are looking to transition in financial services or something, you'll probably know more about climate than most other people who are applying and working in those areas. And I work with a number of paid volunteers working for nonprofits working on climate. And it's pretty interesting, but I actually feel like through this course and other learning I've done, I know more about the general topic of climate change than they do. They know their one particular field that they focus on, but they don't have time to go learn more. And so this course really gave me a leg up. I'm able to have really nuanced conversations with those folks. So hopefully that's a little bit helpful. The journey is different for everybody and it depends on your skill set, but it does kind of go that way. Rich.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks. So mine's more of I'm pretty interested actually in taking this course. I'm having a lot of trouble getting to the application. So it tells me my application submitted, which my application is not submitted. I can't get in, I can't go change it. I can't submit it. I'm not quite sure how to follow up with that. So I'd love to get some help from you guys directly so I can actually get to the application so I can submit it. But the link is not working. And the second thing is I'm technically a retiree, but early age retiree kind of thing. I don't know where that fits in terms of the whole layoff and cost adjustments on the course or how that fits into that. So if you guys can speak to that, that'd be great too.
I'm going to address the first part. I will just DM. I'll actually put Shatakshi, who handles admissions, email ID on the chat. So if any of you are having problems with your application, please call that out to her. She'll fix that for you. She manages all admissions and makes sure that everybody gets in as needed. So if you just kind of message, I put it right on the chat.
Real quick. So I've emailed her 3 times and she sent me the same link 3 times and it hasn't worked 3 times. So
Oh, really?
That's where I'm still frustrated. So.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let me just call it out internally. Let me just call it internally. Okay. Thank you. Greg, do you want to address the second bit that about discounts?
Yeah. Rich, I just put my email address. Please send me an email as well, and I can try to work with you on this. And we'll try to figure that out for you. Sorry about all the troubles. I hope no one else is having a lot of trouble. If you are, please feel free to reach out to me directly or to Shatakshi, and we'll work this out. We do have, we've just launched a new platform of the course, and so there are a few bugs. We've tried to get rid of most of those, but every now and then we find them, and we just ask for a little patience as we work through that stuff. So apologies for that. The discounts, we know there are a number of tech layoffs right now, and so officially it was intended for people who recently were laid off due to the tens of thousands of people being laid off in the tech field. We are fairly lenient on our discounts. The more people who pay full price, the more we're able to offer other scholarships. So that's kind of one thing that we throw out if you're able to afford it. When I took the program, I was able to afford it. I didn't ask for any sort of scholarship or anything like that, but I don't say that to shame or guilt anyone. If it would be useful for you, go ahead and ask for it. Shatakshi does make the final call on that. So if you have not been laid off recently and you're trying to say I was laid off, she'll look at LinkedIn and some other things. We're not trying to catch people lying, but we do want to really help those who were recently laid off. We want it to be a real benefit. Again, though, if it would be beneficial for you to get a scholarship or a discount, please include that in your application. Let that be known, and we try to accommodate everyone we possibly can. Does that help at all on that question, Rich?
Yeah, so I couldn't see the application, so I don't quite know how it's being asked as much as I saw the banner and saw that I didn't know how to read. I'm on a limited income as a retiree, but so that's all.
And so, yeah, that's a perfect situation, limited income. We want people to take this course more than we want to charge a lot of money. Again, though, the more that we charge, the more people who pay full price, the more scholarship money we have available. So it kind of goes hand in hand. But if it would be helpful and enable you to take the program, please request some aid. And it's not just those who have been laid off recently who can get aid. Jennifer.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for doing this. It's really helpful. I have a question around timing. So For me, for a variety of reasons, I wouldn't be looking to make a job change until 2024. So I'm kind of at the early phase of research and learning and so on. So I would just be curious what folks think in terms of timing. Is this best to do in sort of just in time, like as you are starting the application search process? Is it equally valuable to do a little earlier on? I would just be curious thoughts from the group on that.
Ooh, I
Amy's
want to
got her
speak to
hand
that
up,
one.
so-
Because Jennifer, I also was not looking for a job coming into Terra. I've only been at this company about a year and I'm really, really enjoying it. And it's provided me an amazing amount of stability, not just financially, but emotionally and like logistically. And so I knew I didn't want to leave anytime soon. But this course gave me the confidence for all of the things I want to do outside of my day job. So I feel like I'm now able to engage with that sustainability group within the company in a different way. I'm able to have different kinds of conversations with the Climate Action Network for International Educators. And I think what's great is having access to that content down the line means that when I am ready to apply for a job, I can go back and look at it. But I do think I'm going to go more for the community than for the content when it comes time, because that's where I can, in Slack, I know if I am interested in a particular company or I see a role that I'm excited about, I could put that out there and be like, does anyone know anyone there? Or does anyone know anything about this company? Any red flags I should be aware of? And I know I could lean on the Terra community for that. So I'm very much looking forward to leveraging that when I'm ready. But I would say I don't feel like it was too early and I feel energized. I feel like I've been able to spend time identifying what I can do outside of my day job, which is exciting because it's not, well, I think my impression is that most participants are looking for a full-time job. Not all of us are. And so it's not like the entire course is all about getting a job. So I did feel like I was able to learn a ton in the meantime. Yeah.
Thank you.
That was an awesome answer. I'll just add to it. The course can be, especially if you're already working, it's a lot. And if you're trying to look for a job at the same time, that could really be a lot. So the earlier you get involved, the more you learn about what sectors and companies you're interested in, I think it would be beneficial. That doesn't mean if you want to switch right away that you shouldn't take the program, but you have a unique advantage in that you would have time to really learn and sift through everything. I think you would find it incredibly useful. So take it sooner than later. I see Robert's nodding, maybe some others. Hopefully that resonates with folks. And Tiziana.
Yes, hi. Thank you very much for the presentation, for the introduction of the course. It sounds very exciting. And I have a quick question. It's regarding, I wanted to know specifically if this course covers, I know I've seen the phases of the courses, but I just wanted to know more how deep you go into greenhouse gas emission. For example, do you teach us to learn how to use the calculation tools from greenhouse gas protocols or any other tools out there that companies are using to measure the carbon footprint?
That's a really good question, and I'll ask the alums what they think of the answer might be, but it's a 12-week program and we cover a great number of topics. So we don't go incredibly deep on any one topic. And yet, as someone mentioned, we do have links to go quite a bit deeper. And in our community, there are people who can help you with whatever you want. We have a Slack channel called Asks and Offers, and we encourage, if you have a particular question or you want to know something about greenhouse gas calculators, we will touch on it in the program, but there are resources and ways for you to get those answers and to go as deep as you want to go, would be my thoughts on that. Anyone, any other thoughts?
Yeah, I'll just add, it was never lacking for information. So even though it doesn't go incredibly deep each week, it's definitely a lot. And so like that was maybe one thing I was going to add to the previous question was having some time to really digest everything is actually really helpful because as Ben said, there's just link after link after link that will go incredibly deep into a topic. So I would just have 30, 50 tabs open on my desktop and just at night try to like get through some of them. So if you're coming into this for like an educational perspective or background, you want to learn a lot, I think you'll definitely have plenty of resources.
and Kirti often arranges community sessions. So we have learning for action sessions, guest talks, and then we also have community events going on. And we've often had people come in and talk about their carbon calculators and tools that they use. And you could connect with those folks, but they'll also walk you through how to do that. So it's you can kind of go as deep as you want to, or say, that's not something I really care about. I'm glad to know that little bit. Now I want to move on to another piece. It's really, we call it an all-you-can-eat, or I often describe the course as an all-you-can-eat buffet. And I encourage people not to try to eat all of everything because you won't feel very good. So, take a little taste here, a taste there. We'll point out what the entrees are, the main courses that we want you to really make sure you have. And then everything else is you can have as much or as little as you want of all the rest of it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Brian, I saw you a question. I'm sorry, I'm not keeping up with everything in the chat because I can't look at chat and talk at the same time or listen to people at the same time. So I'm really bad at multitasking. But I did want to comment that we rewrite the courses every few months, and we work pretty hard to keep the course current and relevant. And feedback that we get all the time is it's amazing how relevant and up to date the course materials are. We've even had people with PhDs in climate in some way who, an instructor who learned something by reading through the course materials because the science had changed a little bit and she hadn't been aware of that. So it's really, I think that's one of our strengths is how up to date we keep things. Anybody want to add to that? Okay, Nitish.
Yeah, thank you for that. So yeah, we talked about going down a particular area, like trying to learn more about some of the areas during the coursework. So I'm just trying to understand realistically, like how much time do you spend? Did you guys spend through the program? Like, that's some minimum time commitment you do for assignments and projects and like getting to know the community, things like that. But when you really get into something, how much time did you actually spend, and how did you really manage it with your work?
Anybody want to respond?
So I've already spent less than 10 hours a week, I think, and that included like the asynchronous materials going through classes each week. It included like what hour and a half I think we had for a synchronous meeting each week, and if we had assignments going on. I just, because I'd done an MBA part-time and online, I was pretty used to juggling my time like this. It also helped that like I was pretty divested from my job at the time, so it's not like I was trying to work particularly hard in my actual role. So I think I was also, as I mentioned the links and I go down these rabbit holes. I never clicked on the links, so I never went down these rabbit holes. So that helped me kind of manage my time better, as I wasn't trying to get too deep on topics. I was looking more of a general interest of fill in the high level knowledge gaps that I might have. And then also try to figure out, I think what Amy mentioned too earlier is like, what are the topics that excite me? Those are probably the things I want to probably go work on in the future. That's probably somewhere around a little less than 10 hours a week, I bet. Like 6 to 10, I bet.
Yeah, similar for me, and something else that really helps because you're not trying to get like a good grade, right? There's some assignments and you obviously want to like do well on, but I had like a study session a couple times a week at lunch with a couple other fellows, and that was really helpful. So we would just discuss like that week's topics. We'd help kind of catch each other up if we were behind on anything, and just so we were like prepared to have some meaningful discussions during the courses themselves. So I would say, yeah, very much agree on the time commitments, and maybe self-studying with others was also really valuable.
I'm seeing comments from the other alums saying 6 to 10, 6 to 12, 10 to 12. We do ask a question in our end of course survey, how much time did you spend on this per week? And the average is in the 6 to 10 range. I do want to highlight as well, this is learning for you. It's very different from the learning a lot of us have done in the past where you're trying to get a grade and you're trying to, be in the top 10% or whatever. This is completely ungraded. It's entirely for you. So we encourage you to put in as much or as little time as you can. And the assignments, if we give you an assignment and it really doesn't work for you, we say modify it, make it so it is useful for you. The whole point of the assignments is to help you solve these, answer these questions for yourself. What is your climate journey? What is useful? What are your next steps? Where do you go? What do you want to learn about? So it is very much adult education with no grades, and it's put in as much time as you want. A number of folks who say they put in a lot of time are the ones who go down the rabbit holes. And I was guilty of that myself. I had the 50 tabs open or whatever it was, and would try to go through them all. And eventually I would just close them all and start again. And pretty soon I'd have 30 more tabs open of articles I wanted to read. Any other comments? Awesome. Tim?
Yeah, it became like an end of week task to just like clear out the tabs. And if I didn't have time to read them, I would add them to my little list of resources to come back to.
Awesome. Tim?
Could you guys speak a little bit about the group assignments, what they were like and how those worked?
I'm happy to talk about those, but any alums want to talk about your experience with those?
Nothing really in particular. We had one assignment where you pick like kind of a key topic area and you kind of present like the latest science on like what's going on there. And I might be forgetting the exact kind of outcome of the assignment, but yeah, it was pretty straightforward. We just got together, said
go out and solve global warming and
yeah
be done by Friday.
So particularly for us, we were learning about kind of I think carbon capture in or carbon sequestration from like kelp seaweed, and what are the kind of pros and cons of that? What are the other like issues with that? Are there any negatives or kind of like these negative feedback loops that can happen due to this? So you just kind of deeper dive into one topic, and it's relatively open choice. So our instructor gave us like a list of 7 topics, and you would just kind of choose, like throw your name at a group that you would like to be. And then they'd help to kind of juggle it, make sure it's a bit fair, like people are divvied up into appropriate sized teams, and then you have about a week to work on that. So it was pretty straightforward. There was one other assignment, which I thought was really valuable, and I spent more time on this one. So it's like, why are you here? Are you here to learn, here to lead, here to build something, here to get a job, etc.? And I did like 3 of those assignments just because I thought it was a good map, like mind map for me to sit down and see, like spend some time on, thinking through why am I really here? What do I want to do with this? So it's not anything very unusual.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. There are 2 team assignments. The first one is we put people into teams across time zones in different regions, and it's a little bit hard to coordinate, but you don't ever have to meet. You could just communicate via Slack if you needed to. And the goal of that is to learn about other people's contexts, what's happening for them regarding climate, what impacts, but really how are people talking about it? How do people view it? Is there action that's happening? Is it not happening? So it's to learn about each other's contexts. And that one seems to really open a lot of eyes to what's going on around the world, and also to connect us with people all over the world. And then the second one is more of the one Robert talked about, and it's on mitigation sectors, we call it, where we will lay out 7 different areas of climate mitigation and ask you to pick which one you're most interested in. And this is part of that, helping you figure out what to work on. So if you came knowing you want to work on carbon sequestration in the oceans and kelp, you would choose that as your topic and you could go there. But if you were just exploring different topics and you're like, wow, that sounds really interesting and I don't know a lot about it, so I'll join that team and I'll work on that. And we don't ask you to go super deep on the topic. It's really to open your eyes and then share your learning with the other fellows in your lab group. So thanks, Robert really nailed it, and I'm just hopefully clarifying a little bit more on the other assignment especially.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch on time. We're on time. So I think if folks have any more questions, more than happy for you all to email us. I'm just popping my email in the chat, and here's Greg as well. Greg, I'm passing yours along as well. Thanks so much to our fellows for coming along. Really, really appreciate the time and giving us. Thanks so much to all of you who have taken these small steps to kind of come along to open house. If you have any more questions, just feel free to kind of write into us. We're more than happy to kind of help. I put in Shatakshi's email ID as well. I'll just do that again very quickly. So in case you have any questions for admissions or like your application discounts, etc., please reach out to Thanks so much, folks. Much appreciated. Thanks,
Yeah,
Greg.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Kirti. Thanks all, and alums especially.
Bye.